To the extent that we live our lives in a manner that is consistent with the truth in our heart, we thrive.
Welcome to the Meier Clinics podcast, and you just heard a quote from one of your hosts, Dr. Lisa Day. Join our licensed clinical professionals from various backgrounds as they discuss fascinating mental health topics with a wide range of guests. Meier Clinics is a Christian counseling organization with multiple clinics nationwide dedicated to treating the whole person, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Welcome to our listening family. We thank you for joining us. Everyone, we are on for what's going to be a fascinating show today on the Meier Clinics podcast. Of course, we have the wonderful and lovely Dr. Lisa Day. Hello, Lisa.
Hi, Kristin.
Did you love how I'm talking like this? Did you? I have no idea why I'm doing that.
It's Friday.
It's
It
Friday.
happens.
Exactly. Listeners, wherever you're listening, whatever day it is, we're recording this on a Friday afternoon, and we are ready for it to be Friday. Oh, so the show today is called Is My Mother Still Affecting Me?
Yeah.
I feel like fireworks should go off. I think everybody can answer that in positive and maybe not so positive ways. So, Dr. Lisa Day, please share with us your wisdom.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. And so, as a psychologist, obviously we always look at developmental issues, when one comes into a therapeutic setting. But the one thing that we all know, any of us who walk this place on earth, is we all have mothers, right?
Right.
And all of us, have been influenced by our mothers one way or the other. And so when we look at, is my mother still affecting me? Oftentimes what comes into my office is my mother's driving me crazy. My mother is so controlling, or I can't say no to my mother, or in other times we don't hear it at all. And so one of the reasons I wanted to go through this topic is to look at, am I still living in the past with regard to my current relationships today? Because whether we like it or not, and we're not here to bash moms. I'm a mom,
Right.
You're a mom,
Right.
I've got a mom and grandma, and what we want to look at is how and in what way has my mother affected who I am and how I operate today. And whether we like it or not, moms have the greatest influence on us. And not that dads aren't important at all, but for whatever reason, fathering relationships, while equally important, when damage is done there, the foundational pathology that occurs from father challenges are much easier to fix. And as we walk through, is my mother still affecting me? There are reasons why, right? So
Right.
Mom and dad, equally important in our life. But if you look at a hierarchy, if you put your hands in a triangle, I always say that in our hierarchy of who is the most powerful person in our life, in my opinion, it's our mother. And it's for a number of reasons.
Well, let's talk about those reasons.
You betcha. So it's easiest if we start, what is mothering, or what is mom supposed to provide?
Okay.
And, when we think about what mom is supposed to provide, and before we go into that, I probably would want to preamble that mothering needs, as we walk through this presentation today, are not attached to the specific mother we had. We want to think about that mother in a nurturing regard. Follow me? Because that's one of the places we get stuck, is that we think, oh, because my mother did not meet any of these, I'm forever defective. And it's not. We want to gain insight if I have deficits, or what I call growth opportunities in these arenas, so that we can continue to get that mothering as an adult, or wherever we are in our growth process. So when we look at, what is mother supposed to provide, at its very core, and we talk about this so often, is we are to experience that healthy connection, that healthy attachment, and the ability to have bonded relationships. That's the very first, we come out of the womb and we're going to go right to the nurturing, of the mother, the nutritional nurturing. And that's our, first experience with bonding, with connection, with attachment. We come in helpless, we come in like little seeds. I call them oak seeds, that if those seeds are planted correctly, we're going to have a tree grow that's going to be strong and it's going to be green and it's going to give off more seeds. But if that seed is not planted and doesn't have healthy attachment, it doesn't have healthy connection, it doesn't have healthy bonding, it's absolutely going to affect how we grow and develop into adulthood.
Is it, because I have a little bit of a panic, even though I've been in plenty of therapy around this, but is it like you're doomed if your relationship with your mother was awful and continues to be?
Well, I don't like to think of us as doomed. I like to think of it as opportunities for growth, right?
Right.
So if in relationship with connection, attachment, and bonding, we've achieved, or what that gives us is the ability to begin to build a foundation of trust, of respect, of empathy, and hope. So we begin to build the foundations of being able to operate as a mature, separate adult. And so, oftentimes, right where you are, Kristin, what if we didn't experience that? What if,
Right.
for whatever reason, mom wasn't there? And maybe it's that she has depression. Maybe it's that she has illness. Maybe it's that she's too wounded to provide that safe connection and attachment. Maybe she's narcissist.
Right.
But what does this leave us? And, in its simplest sense, it leaves us with chronic emptiness. We develop a human-shaped hole inside.
Right.
And that, unfortunately, that emptiness that results from not getting the connection, attachment, and bonding that we needed as a child, it motivates all kinds of crazy adult behavior. It's the platform for not only dysfunctional coping, dysfunctional operating, but absolutely dysfunctional relationships. Meaning, if we have that healthy nurturing, if we have that healthy development, we are going to expect that in relationships as we grow older. If we don't have that bonding, we grow into adults constantly looking for someone to soothe, to address that feeling of abandonment, that feeling of not belonging, that feeling of not being attached, really a neurotic anxiety or neurotic dependence. So it absolutely affects us. Are we doomed? No. Do we have an opportunity for growth? Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting when you feel your way through the stages of it too, because you don't, there's so many shows I've done with Dr. Paul Meier about getting into your subconscious, like we're operating and somebody's driving the ship and we really don't know who or what it is because it's our subconscious. So it's interesting to see yourself in relation to your mother and your, if there was any narcissism or wounding, or, you didn't have that secure attachment, to see how that plays out with other people in your life. And then to really grow up and have, like, if your mother is narcissistic, so she's got, a 3 to 12-year-old who's driving her adult body, she can't really be your mother ever. And then you have that too, unless you do the work that maybe she can't or won't do. And you actually grow up and become an adult, and then you mother yourself. So for me, I stopped always needing to go to somebody else for an opinion about anything to do with my life. I stopped having this kid run the show, and I don't seek out that mother. I have so many great mothers in my life. You're one of them, but I don't need, cling to that, because I have me. I am a mother to me. But let me tell you, it took until 50 to have that, and it's an ongoing process.
Well, but I would add to that. You said, I want to really elaborate on that comment that I have many mothers, because when we walk through this, we're all going to critically evaluate our mothers, and we want to point, to, oh,
Right.
that's why, and that's why. And we can't provide it all to ourselves. Even though we may
Right.
not have been mothered, or these nurturing needs from our mother have not been met, we absolutely, in this opportunity to grow and in developing an operating system that works for us, we have to establish a family of friends where that ongoing nurturing, mothering can continue. And she may
Right.
not be 30 years older than us, she may be younger than us, but it's looking at where that experience of connection and attachment and bonding in our family of friends or in our extended family can be met. So while it may not be met in our childhood, it's imperative that we look at developing and growing those relationships so that it's met ongoing in our life today.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I could do nothing of what I do if I did not have many amazing, nurturing women on speed dial that offer me mothering.
Well, so people, when you look at that, and the very simple or the very first thing about what mom's supposed to do and provide that attachment, people ask me, why do I have such a bad picker, meaning with a partner, right?
Right.
And I tell them, if you've experienced a harsh or critical or judgmental, very controlling environment or a misuse of power in your primary caregiver, i.e. your mom, you're going to you become hardwired for that. And so you
Mm-hmm.
are either going to unconsciously seek that in your partner, or you're going to unconsciously seek that in your partner and attempt to fix what went wrong in your childhood. But either way, it's not a good outcome. And so,
Right.
being able to identify, wow, you know what, my mom wasn't kind, loving, and a healthy, safe, attached kind of person. She was harsh, she was critical, judgmental, control compliant. And so I need to work on me before I look outside of me, in order to find those connections.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to, you have to, and your picker does get better as you do the work. And you can, not that you want to compare and, like you said, point and so on, but I can, even though I have been just wounded at a soul level in my relationship with my mother, I am at a place now where I can look at her and see the behavior, see how she has this hole. That's where the martyr comes from. That's where the
Mm-hmm.
exaggeration of everything comes from, because she's constantly starving for the love that she did not get from her own mother. She had nothing to give me.
She has that same human-sized hole
Yes.
that she's trying to fill. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And thankfully I have had that for sure. And, listeners, we always say this too, like, this is not, you're not going to listen to this podcast or go to therapy for a couple years and then have this all figured out. Like, it's a constant, it's a journey, as we say, not a destination. And things will crop up in your life that are stressful. And then you can revert back to some of those other unhealthy ways. And that's not oh my gosh, I've lost it. I've ruined, I've wasted all those years in therapy. No, that's just part of the journey. It's, you
Oh,
needed a
absolutely.
little more nurturing during this particular trying time.
Well, and when we walk through this, we want to realize that there's assets and liabilities, there's strengths and weaknesses. So, we want to integrate the good things that we got from our mothering style, and we want to be aware of the deficits so that we can continue to grow. When you talk about attachment, it's not either or. There are some mothers who are attached to the level, and we'll talk about this when we talk about different styles, but to the point where the separateness was not allowed. So it's enmeshment.
Right.
So it's not either or. Yeah. Then the next thing that is huge, and this is one that I talk about all the time with my clients, and it's, it comes from mom. And I always take my hands and I reach them out as if I was going to be putting my arms completely around your back and holding you tight. And I say that it was mom's number one, I believe, next to nurturing, is to teach us, mom's number one job is to teach us how to contain our chaos.
Mm.
Not, not,
Sorry, that a chuckle escaped my lips. No,
did
the
I just
chaos
poke
came
you?
from my mother.
Exactly. And, and,
There was
and
no
see,
containment. I was the chaos containment.
and that's it. It gets projected onto you. So if you think about mom's number one job is being able to contain our chaos. I mean, anybody who knows me, if you look at me, I'm a registered nurse. I'm a licensed clinical
Yeah.
psychologist. Someone can be in front of me, be hit by a car and a leg cut off. And I go, oh, I better put that leg next to the body until the
Right.
help
You're the
comes, right?
chaos containment too.
Yeah. Well,
Officer. Yeah.
but no, it's a direct result of having a mother who always contained my chaos. No
Oh,
matter
I
what
see.
no matter what happened, my mother would say, how are you? And we can navigate through this. Never,
Mm.
a car could have been totaled by a dumb, going through a stoplight. I could have lost a piece of jewelry. I could have lied to my neighbor's mom because I didn't want to play with my friend anymore. There was always the way through. So whenever I was chaotic or I was rejected or I didn't make student council, there was never inflamed. She always would say, how are you? How are your emotions? And let's look at how we navigate through, and not in a disregarding sense. So mom's number one job is to contain our chaos. That teaches us and gives us a foundation to navigate or to fly out of the nest, right?
Right.
But when our moms are the ones who create our chaos, meaning, you did what? You wrecked the car? You lost the bracelet? You didn't get into that school? Oh, I can't deal with this. I've got to get out of here. Meaning, if our experience creates chaos in our mom, that's some of the most drastic, injurious dynamics with our mom.
Yes. And then there's also the just, I'm going through something that a normal teenager is going through, or something horrific is happening, and it's such a burden to your mother to have to deal with this stuff, and you are supposed to feel horrendously guilty for burdening her with sometimes what is just normal stuff that happens as a kid, and also other traumatic things that were possibly created by her negligence or whatever. So it can be that,
So
and
you're
it can
shamed.
also be, exactly, it can be many things.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Dr. Paul Meier of the Meier Clinics. Our Christian counselors across the country have a goal of helping all those who come to us to become what God has called them to be. If you're in a situation where you're not at peace within yourself, or you just feel like there's joy that's missing in your life, we can come alongside to help you obtain peace and joy.
This message is sponsored by the Meier Clinic Foundation, a nonprofit Christian counseling ministry. The number is 1-888-7-CLINIC, 1-888-7-CLINIC.
Narcissism is one of the way. I mean, I think that narcissism, when it comes to containing chaos, is the worst, because everything's a fire. And you and I have talked about this before, Kristin, but you just learn to be hyper vigilant and to avoid the fires. But there's other times when moms, you can't tell them anything because they don't have the emotional wherewithal to navigate it. It crushes them. Follow me? So I had a client the other day who was sharing with me, she was a victim of a violent crime years and years ago. And I said, how did you navigate through that? I said, did you, share that with your family? Who got you through that? And, she shook her head and she said, oh, no, my family doesn't know about it to today. And I said, oh, good. And it was two reasons. One, because they wouldn't have the ability to navigate the trauma that she went through. And two, they would have blamed her. So there's many ways in which mom contains our chaos, but we want to know that, we need mom there for connection, for attachment, for bonding. We need mom to contain our chaos. And then this is kind of a fallout of where we're going with it. The next thing we need, our next role of mom, is to help us establish a sense of separateness.
Yeah.
And identity. And you can burst out laughing again for that.
Yeah, forget that with a narcissistic mother, because your limbs are her limbs. Your bank account is her bank account. Your life is her life.
and does that end after you move out of the house?
No, gosh, no,
Oh.
Absolutely not. Enacting control all over the place. If it's funny how the opposites happen. So mine was full enmeshment, and nobody's good enough for me, and very just hateful to their only grandchild and my husband and all that, because they took attention away from her. But my reaction to that was to be much more removed from my son, and much more like, really push him, I think, way too young of an age to be independent and take care of yourself, because I didn't want to have that enmeshment. And so his craving of me is, I wish you had been more like, mothering and more nurturing, and things like that, because I just didn't want to smother him to death.
So we often do the exact opposite, right?
Yep.
Only to recreate a different kind of injury. Yeah
Exactly.
And pros and cons to it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's never, you're always working on your stuff with your kids and your stuff with your mom. And like you've said, there's always lessons to learn, and they go on and on and on, because as you age and you get into that subconscious and you do work, the way that you perceive the entire world changes. And that is going to have an effect, as what you said, on that relationship that was the most defining, which is your mother. Whether she's in your life or not, it's still going to have an effect.
It's absolutely. And it's kind of weird, so if you look at mom is the most instrumental in helping us develop a sense of separateness and identity. The weird part is that the goal of mothering is to connect, right? To
Mhm.
establish that attachment, that bondedness. Well, and then it's to separate, right? And
Right.
so
It's a
it
big
takes a
job.
lot. So in a healthy sense, if we have healthy mothering, we have a mom who's created a great sense of connection, a great sense of attachment, but then she's going to also facilitate healthy separateness. And that takes a lot of strength on moms to do this. And and
Yeah.
and and you have to face the reality in a healthy sense. If you're mothering, or if you were mothered in a healthy sense, you have to face the reality that you won't be the most important nor the most impactful person in that child's life. And that's really difficult for insecure moms. It's that
Right.
doesn't matter if you marry, it doesn't matter if you have new in-laws or new families, I am the most important. And so, while connection is very, very important, also establishing that sense of separateness and unique identity and honoring that unique identity is imperative.
Oh man, how many moms do you see where, if all of us watched on TV shows and we know in our own lives, and maybe this is your mother, where, they just don't get along with whoever it is you're dating, or and they could be not good enough for you, or maybe they do really get along with them, but then you're not attracted to that person anymore because your mother loves them so much. There's so much around that kind of stuff that that goes on. It's become such an interesting dynamic. I think I'm removed to the point of, well, I've told my son, I don't need to hear about your Tinder stuff. Like, I don't even want to know about it. La la la. Here's,
Hmm.
when this person is important enough that you actually introduce them to your father and I, then I care. And I'm not going to be jealous or any, because I haven't been to date, but still there's an unattachment there that isn't, that he and I still have to work on. So it
Well,
happens no matter what you do and what the dynamic was.
and it's healthy separateness, right? So it's healthy attachment and healthy separateness. And so, do I think that it's healthy for parents of college students to monitor their kids' GPA and assignments?
Right.
Absolutely not, right? Because that just creates a neurotic dependence in the child, or hostility and aggression. So I want to honor that you're in school and how's it going for you, and let me know if in what ways I can support you. But then, being over involved obviously is not going to be the
Right.
answer as well.
Yes,
Then the
smothering is not good.
smothering, yeah, but how would that smothering, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
smothering. Well, and then the final thing we want to think about when we go through, is our mom still affecting us, is that mom really is one of the most instrumental people in helping us integrate the good and bad in the world, the good and bad in self, and the good and
Mm,
bad in others. And
interesting.
it's similar to containing the chaos, but it's so many parents, especially today, I describe that their kids are pawns in a chess game,
Right.
and it's performance and perfection. And unfortunately, this is incredibly destructive, to the development of the individual. But if we're looking at mom being, the primary person responsible for bringing the good and bad together, not only does she do it by, it's okay that you didn't make the team. It's, child comes home, I got a B on my exam. It's not why'd you get a B. It's, do you feel that's an appropriate grade? Do you feel good about that grade? Does that seem appropriate for how you studied or whatever? But really, mom's most instrumental way of helping a child learn how to integrate the good and bad in themselves is to model it. It's just to model it. Meaning, I can
Yeah.
pull up that. Unfortunately, a number of incidences, and for some reason, Kristin, they seem to relate to my dogs. But I know that when my kids were younger, and I had, at one point we had this lab, and just an amazing lab. But boy, that front door opened, and he'd just dart, and he'd go for miles and miles.
Did he always come back eventually, or did you have to go get
Sometimes we
him?
wish he didn't, but we love them because we would get so worried about him,
You're
right?
like, I've grieved
So
your death. Don't come back now.
yes, well, you get within 10 feet of him, and then he'd go, this is fun, I'm
Oh,
taking off again. And so
yeah.
you talk about homicidal tendencies, but I'm just joking. But in some of those instances, when my young kids, I don't know, they were maybe 8 and 10, they left the door open, right? I would, screech, what in the world were you thinking? How could you have let him out? And I run out and get the dog, and I'm being a real jerk, right?
Right.
And the best thing that when we're talking about integrating the good and the bad is that the ability to come back in and say, you know what, girls, I really blew that.
Yeah.
I messed up, and I apologize. I let my anger cause me to operate in a manner that was disrespectful. I apologize. Please forgive me. And when we model that, it's only a matter of time when, you see your teenager. My kids are a little older now, but there they are at 16, having been definitely a mean ager. And you're thinking, where did that one come from? And they come back in, and they say, you know what, Mom, I was really unkind. Those weren't
Mm,
nice words. And I wonder if you can forgive me. That is how
yeah.
we teach them. It's that we model that we're not perfect. We embrace when they're not perfect. When they make a mistake or they did something wrong, or your kid comes and says, Mom, I did take that $20 that was on top of the washing machine. You
Right.
say, thank you. I appreciate you being honest. We can find a way for that to be taken care of. But what's most important to me is that you had the wherewithal to be honest. And that's huge.
Yeah. I always say to my son, thank you for not getting into any trouble ever, like nothing with school, no trouble. He never got in trouble until he went into the Marines. I was like, I'm so glad that I didn't have to handle that. 'Cause he just didn't. It's not, we weren't like really strict either. Our house was the house where everybody hung out. I mean, we didn't allow drinking and drugs and stuff, but I mean, our house, everybody wanted to be at. We treated him, I guess, like an adult. But I will say this is kind of funny. Very quickly, we had an instance with the dog and the door. I think Helen was 8 or something. And humor helps so much when
Oh, yeah.
they get older, because I had an instance where he fell on the floor laughing about me running down the street trying to save our dog from being hit, all
Oh,
this. And
yeah.
he's on the ground laughing. And I'm like, I want the dog to keep running in the street, and you're not my child anymore. Right. So I go and I push him. I had clogs on, and I pushed him out of the way because we couldn't get in the door because he was laying on the floor laughing. So I pushed him. I kind of shoved him out of the way with my foot with clogs on. And forever, he loved to bring that story out at, meeting with clients, and he's sitting there and my mom kicked me.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Kellen, I swear. And then, we laugh about it. Now we laugh. Oh, here we are. I'll look at him and go, you're about ready to tell the kicking story, right?
Oh, good. Yeah, we've heard it before. Let's move on to the next one.
Exactly. Oh,
Yeah.
but those things help, that humor. I think if you can have that humor with your parents and it's not laced with digging or, it actually is humor, there's joy and brevity and laughter in it. My gosh, that cures a lot of ills.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think so, if we look at those, what mothers are supposed to do, provide attachment, help us have separateness, help,
Mhm.
contain chaos and help us resolve good and bad. I think it's helpful just to go for a few moments and talk about some of the problematic mothering styles. And when we talk about them, it's really important that, we think bigger than the person who was mothering, and we get into appreciating the mother function, right? So it's easy when you're listening to a podcast like this to go into mom's long brown hair and those jeans that she used to wear, and then to really begin to get angry and go back and feel the trauma. But
Right.
my goal is to look at, I want to identify, okay, those are the things that moms are supposed to do in a nutshell. And here are some problematic styles. Where is my opportunity to grow? Where do I have some work to do?
Oh, yes.
And so that being said, there's a couple of
Let's
different,
get into that.
and
Yes,
you and I have several podcasts on growing up with a narcissistic mother, and we can refer people to that on Meier Clinics because
absolutely.
I've gotten so many feedback on the 3 of those. But it will come into one of these. But without a diagnosis, the first mothering style that I see to be incredibly injurious or providing lots of opportunities for growth is a detached, or absent mom. And
Mm,
there's many versions of this, and it's really important to know that she might be absent but home every day, right? But that emotionally she's not there for us. And so is that narcissism? Is that illness? Is that her depression? Is it her addiction? Is it her preoccupation with her job? But when a mom is detached, or is absent, um, we don't get that connection. We don't get that attachment. Our heart grows sick because our nurturing needs are not being met. And so oftentimes we learn to go into a detached state ourselves, right? Or we seek emotionally unavailable people as we develop relationships. And the big clincher in this, the takeaway, if we have had a detached or an absent mother, is as adults, or certainly when we're headed into the dating years, we mistake longing for love for love. Follow me? We feel
Yes.
that aching for love is the love. And there we find ourselves with, again, emotionally detached or absent partners.
And we find ourselves bored with loving, stable partners because they don't give you enough zippity doo-dah and fantasy island of the longing, longing, longing. You can long and long and long for the most perfect, magical fairy dust relationship ever that's never going to exist.
Right. Or what I'm hearing you say too, reading between the lines, is there's not the drama, there's not the pain of longing.
Exactly.
So someone shows up perfectly available, healthy attachment style, according to Levine, and we think, oh, that's boring.
Right. I'm
So
not attracted to that person.
I'm not attracted to that. Yeah.
Yep.
It's that whole, it's not chemistry, when in fact it's not pathology, and we're used to pathology.
Yep.
So we've got the detached mom. We have, which we kind of touched upon here a few moments ago, we've got the fragile mom. And it's a mom that is not at all able, to put her arms around our chaos and drama. She freaks out, when something goes wrong. She screams and yells at us, or bails, or goes to a bottle of booze, or a bottle of pills, that she is not able to provide us any internal soothing. So when we're chaotic, she freaks out and we shut down. And so as an adult, where we're going to see this is we don't have any internal soothing system. So when we feel overwhelmed or when we feel chaotic, we don't know how to calm. We don't know how to contain the chaos. We don't know how to self-soothe. And you know where I'm going to go with this. We're going to seek alcohol, drugs,
Yep.
pot, sex, gambling, workaholism, franticism. But when we've had that emotionally absent or fragile mom, we're fragmented as an adult.
Yep. And I'd say fragile, absent mom. And I was never fragile, but I certainly was absent, even though I was there. Depressed, workaholism, drinking too much at different times, in my 30s. I mean, yeah, it's definitely there. And you can watch the effects that it has, on your kids as they navigate adulthood in their own relationships. And listen, listeners, it takes a lot, but it's you have to let go of the shame around it. Otherwise, you can't move anywhere healthy with your adult children. If I've told my son a number of years ago, I love you. I'm sorry for everything that I ever did that was completely unhealthy, but I can't carry the guilt and shame around anymore. I just can't do it. So you can talk about whatever you want and I will hear you, but just know that I'm not going to feel guilty or ashamed about it because I want us to move to a healthier place. And so now we can. He'll tell me, hey,
Yeah.
that was really hurtful, or what, he'll bring it up, or we'll take a break from each other for a while he's processing something. And I am able to continue living my life because I'm not steeped in shame and guilt about my behavior.
Well, and I think that you absolutely touch upon two things, and I'm always going to always jump to how I teach it. But first and foremost, Kristin, and I think that you demonstrate this in all that you do and all that you are, is we are never too old and it's never too late. So if any of us moms, are listening to this podcast and going, "Oh my goodness gracious, my kids are doomed," right? We are never too old and it's never too late to take ownership and to grow. And then the other thing that I would speak to you directly, in your style with your son, is that it's so really very, very, very important. One of the main reasons I'm doing this podcast is that we love with the love with which we've been loved. We love with the love with which we've been loved. So if we have been loved from an empty, chaotic, judgmental, critical place, that's going to be our natural tendency to love.
Right.
And if that causes us great disdain, we're going to shut it down. And the end result is either we're going to be incredibly enmeshed and codependent, or we're going to be detached. Unless we do the work, we continue the pathology. That's the whole sins of generations, right? Unless we do the work, it will continue on. So
very true.
So the other one, Kristin, which is interesting, and I thought about you when I was preparing my thoughts for this, and before you launch into it, let me explain, is the trophy mom. And it's not the typical narcissistic trophy mom. But when I think of trophy mom, it's where there is no room for imperfections. You must get the trophy, meaning you must be the first, you must be the best. what happened? Why did your time go down? Why didn't you get picked for the select team? It's that I may not necessarily be a trophy mom, but my identity is absolutely attached to your performance.
Right.
You're required to be excellent. You're
What made you
required
think
to be
of me,
perfect.
though?
Oh, because sometimes trophy mom, we think of the narcissistic mother who is going to
Okay.
appear to be perfect.
Gotcha.
This is still a narcissistic mom, but the
Right.
pressure is on the kids. Meaning, I know a family where the kids are all incredible skiers, and you look at this family and you think, my gosh, they're all incredible skiers. But when you take a closer look, the kids are only valued on their time, based on their
Right.
time, based on their Olympic status. Have they qualified for the Olympic team? What do you mean you got in a car accident and can't train? You're not going to qualify for regionals. You're not going to qualify for nationals. You're not going to get on the Olympic team. The sole pressure is perfection and excellence so that I feel okay.
Good.
But the problem in this is that sometimes these kids grow up, and if we're one of these people, we grow up and we believe that we are wonderful, that we are the best, we are an amazing athlete, and it's everybody else who's crazy. And when we come to face reality, we feel attacked by reality. We feel victimized, that I'm not the best. But mom has pushed me to be the best and always told me that I'm the best and always told me that no one compares.
So
So it's
create a narcissistic
absolutely
personality. Doesn't mean it has to be a disorder. It just
absolutely
create you. That is a mothering relationship that just
it creates narcissism.
Creates a narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
Good point.
So it's pressure to perform in order to get my love, but then the fallout from it is either, you're either ideal or you're scum, right? So you have either achieved that or you're not. So it's shame or narcissism. So we've got the trophy mom, and she's looking great. She looks like the All-American. They go to all the soccer games, but the undertone is, you didn't get a good sleep last night and your numbers just were no good. Instead of, did you enjoy the game? And let me tell you, that's where I came up with the phrase, the pawns, because we see it in sports all over the place.
Yeah. There's a whole movie about that, about a famous, Kevin Costner was in it, and I'll put it in the show notes, listeners, but it was really, really good about a narcissistic family, and boy, they pushed their kids, and their daughter ended up running a gambling ring to all of these celebrities out there like Ben Affleck and Tobey Maguire were all part of this gambling ring, and she ended up going to prison about it.
Yeah, there you go. It's the trophy. Yeah.
Yep.
Another style we want to keep an eye out for is, and we talked a lot about this, is that it's the controlling mom. That difference is experienced as bad. Difference is experienced as rejection. Mom is threatened, by any sense of individuality. It's of course you're going to be a doctor, or of course you're going to be a politician, or of course you're going to go to my alma mater. Alma mater? Did I say that right? Yeah.
I don't know either. Alma mater fits for
alma mater. I'm a martyr.
You need to go to my alma mater. Mom, you're making a Freudian slip that's quite relevant in our relationship.
Well, exactly. Well, and so these moms, they create crippled adults because that separateness that is needed is just not honored. And if the price is loss of love, loss of attachment, loss of favor, many of these people won't demonstrate their separateness. They will be compliant to the expectations of their mothers or of their family. They're not going to rock that boat. They're going to the boundary problems huge.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And the last one I love, and I didn't coin this phrase, I took it from one of my mentors early on, and it's the American Express mother. Don't leave home without her.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And the American Express mother, she looks good, she looks loving, she looks supportive, but the adult child, it just is really not able to set up life without, with any level of autonomy from mom. And we see this, the downside of this is what I'm seeing as an epidemic in my practice today is the failure to launch kids.
Yes.
So, the moms will come in and going, my 30-year-old is not establishing separateness, or my son just keeps returning home, or he now has a $15,000 credit card debt and he needs a new car and new tires. And I'm so tired of bailing him out. I said, how old is he? And they're like, oh, he's 34, and it's really that they won't let, there's too much involvement in every aspect of their life, and they don't allow their kids the room to stumble, fall, and fail.
Right.
Because that would reflect on mom's character. But the downside of it, again, is the lack of development of self, the lack of autonomy. And unfortunately, what we're seeing all over today in our society is failure to launch. So,
Oh, yeah. Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. Well, this was good. Good education, hearing these different.
Well, I think that what we do and it's a synopsis of what I really walk through with clients, especially when we look at their development, is that we want to look at our parenting styles and not, so I say it's not to blame, but it's to understand, or I'll say more specifically, it's not an excuse, it's an understanding. So we can't make it an excuse for our poor behavior or our poor choices, but it can help us understand our poor behavior and our poor choices. And it can help us set up a platform for developing boundaries, developing healthy separateness, developing a support system so that we can get the nurturing that we need in order to separate from the dysfunction. So mom sits on the hierarchy of life. And if we look at our operating system, and most importantly, if we look at how we operate in our close personal relationships, we likely are going to see positive and negative effects from our mothering style. And so my hope is that when we walk, as we listen today, that we might look at, where do I have opportunity to grow? Where do I have, I've been a therapist for 27 years and in the field for 30, and I still have difficulty saying no to my mom, right? I have difficulty disappointing her. No, I can't make that happen. I feel awfully bad. And so I have to go through a little boundaries exercise of what is my truth and how can I communicate it under the umbrella of grace, sensitive to the impact it's going to have on her. It's not vicious and malicious that I'm not going to be able to make it home for Thanksgiving. But that automatic guilt or that compliance comes from probably an overly involved or enmeshed relationship at some point during our development. So it doesn't need to be pathological and drastic. It's opportunities to assess and opportunities to grow.
Yes, absolutely. And if you have that hard time with a no, because I could not have used the word no with my mother, just absolutely not. And now we can have a relationship, but it's very, very, very limited for the time being. And I don't know if that will change or it won't. It's happening because I made it happen, and I am a poster child of like exceptional boundaries, like not going to go there in this conversation. And so it's like I put an energetic clamp on my mouth. Don't respond to that.
Well, and Kristin, I think that you point to something, that's a good boundary, but I think you also point to something that is really important, is that sometimes when we engage in a growth process and we begin to feel better and we begin to have boundaries, there is a bit of an assumption that our mother is too.
And that is not the way that it is. Yeah.
And it isn't. And we always have to have realistic expectation that the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior, and really be cognizant of the understanding in our growth is for our understanding and our growth. We can invite our mothers to grow with us, but the likelihood is really guarded. It's really guarded.
Yes. And you can look at, a room for growth and how you find it. And, if you are someone, if you're listening to this podcast, you get a grade A stamp, even though I'm not the mother that would say, you must get an A in this. You do for just listening, because being able to watch you with your adult children and to see how they put up boundaries with you because you're overdoing it is fascinating to examine. It can be painful too in the relationship with your own mother. So, I know that when my son does not respond to a text, which is rare that I do this, or doesn't answer me in a call, he is practicing healthy boundaries with me. And I don't need to feel horrified, mortified, hurt, guilt, and shame when he does it. I have felt that, but now I think, good for you.
We want to celebrate it, just like we say we want to celebrate hearing no. Just yesterday, I was driving home talking to my senior at SMU, and I said, "Did you get out that final application for this position?" She's looking at positions in a couple of prestigious places that maybe are too prestigious, but they make me all anxious, right? And I'm like, "Wow, you need to get that out by the end of the week." And I get this, mother.
Because we all do it. It doesn't matter.
We all do it.
I can't even, it just comes out of you. Like I started overdoing it with the text, and I'm like, the adult was saying, don't hit send. Don't hit send. He doesn't need that. It's not help. And I hit send, and of course, no response whatsoever.
Well, and so when I teach this, Kristin, we say, thank you. When my daughter said,
Yep.
Mother, I said, thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
I said, my excitement, my passion, my anxiety is budging
Bleeding.
into your boundaries.
Yes.
Thank
And
you.
it makes them feel so relieved that you're human.
Yes. Oh, yeah. That's that whole integration of good and bad. We're good and we're bad.
Well, this was a wonderful show, Lisa. So you're the one who wanted to do this topic. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kristin. I always like talking about mothers, and we all have them, and many of us are ones.
Yeah.
Lots of room for growth.
Exactly. Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Meier Clinics podcast. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. Tune in next time for another engaging discussion on relevant mental health topics. If you have any questions about Meier Clinics, please visit our website at meierclinics.com. That's MEIER clinics.com, or call us at 888-7-CLINIC. Don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or any of your favorite podcast apps. And please note that we are a member of and produced by Mental Health News Radio Network, MHNRnetwork.com.